on this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
Yeah, I have a lot of interaction with them. I love them. They're great. They're very loyal. I got a guy who says, I can help you with anything you want to know about 1949 cars. And this guy says, I'm great at guns. And this old lady says, I'm 72 years old and I'm in a wheelchair, but I can shoot a gun and I can tell you everything you need to do to survive the apocalypse. And I go, perfect, let's go.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers. No more barriers. No one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Yes, hello, it's Friday, it's James and Mark. It's back to normal this week with one podcast. And we had a good week last week, busy week last week with lots of things happening. And in the midst of all of that, we did our 3 podcast special, didn't we, Mark, on Facebook ads and Amazon ads and BookBub ads. And they seem to go down really well.
Yes, yeah, they were good episodes. So Shane Silvers, David Cochran, and me and you had a good time talking about the advertising options that are available to authors. And I think some of the feedback I've seen, especially for the first one, as kind of spoiler alert, we're recording this on Thursday, so the David Cochran one has only just gone out, but the response to the Shane Silver's Facebook ads one has been really, really positive, with a lot of people saying it's one of the best ones they've heard and they've learned some good new stuff on Facebook ads. So mission accomplished.
Excellent. Yes, we should say we're recording this a week and a day in advance of its transmission date. I'm going to phone out the way. In fact, it is D-Day. It's June the 6th, and it's the anniversary, 75th anniversary. I've got my RAF Roundel t-shirt on to commemorate the day, best I can do. 156,000, mainly British and American soldiers, crossed the Channel. I think northern France was defended by about 60,000 Germans, and in amongst the Allies were French, Norwegian, Canadian, Australian, and Polish soldiers as well. So a huge day that remains to this day the largest seaborne invasion, probably will, in the history of humankind, and an enormous sacrifice, 4,400 casualties on that day. So big commemorations. We just had the Donald in the UK, who's been over on a state visit, and probably the highlight of that was marking the D-Day commemorations. A few other lowlights of the trip as well, but that was the highlight, I think. And yeah, so it's I love this stuff. You probably know a little bit of history. I think you do as well, and it's all part of where we come from, isn't it?
It is, yes. No, I'm a big fan of history and that kind of stuff as well. So yes, was your dad involved? A bit too young.
So he was a young boy in the Second World War. He was running around collecting parts off downed aircraft on the Isle of Wight. That was his excitement in the Second World War. So he was born in 1931. And my grandfather fought in the First World War and was too old to fight in the Second World War.
My grandfather fought in the Second. So
he did.
Was he
involved in D-Day?
No, he was in Africa and then he invaded Italy.
Did he? Was he supposed to have done that? Or was just went off and did that by himself?
He got lost. Yeah, he got lost. He likes pasta. But no, that was I got some interesting stories from him before he passed away 5 or 6 years ago now. But no, he went out to Monte Cassino and places like that. So very, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't bear thinking about how these men, I suppose it was men, on these boats, on these choppy seas, dry. I mean, it's a long way as well. They didn't take the short route, obviously. There was a diversion tactic, I think, that made it look like they were going to invade at Calais, but actually went across the longest part of the Channel to the beaches, and that's a long way. Everyone was seasick, and then you arrive there into a hail of fiery molten lead bullets firing at you. And just hope that it's going to be your day. It's incredible, really, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's beyond fiction sometimes, some of this stuff. And when you see it in a film, it looks like fiction. It's difficult sometimes. Perhaps Saving Private Ryan was the film that brought it into a more sort of realistic zone for us.
Dunkirk, I would say.
Oh, Dunkirk, you thought that was realistic? Yeah.
Well, both realistic. I mean, Dunkirk is the sooner of the two, and that's really authentic. Even from the way that it's put together, the timing of it. The way that it runs in real time, pretty much. Yeah, it's a really good film.
Yeah, really good. Good. So June the 6th, D-Day today, but this is going out in a week and a day's time. And actually, I will confess that the interview that we've got today, Ryan Schow, is a fantastic interview. Really love talking to Ryan. Very, very positive guy, and he's had a brilliant story. I'm going to tell you a little secret, a message I got from him this morning in a moment. But we did this interview quite a long time ago, actually, back in the autumn. So he's moved on a little bit since then, but the story is in essence the same. And one of the reasons why we've done a look at the ads platforms last week, or this week at the time I'm speaking, is because we've revised the course. So your Ads for Authors course, which is open, one of its periodic openings at the moment. And if you're interested in learning any more about that, you can go to selfpublishingformula.com/ads for authors. But you've revised Amazon ads quite extensively. You sent, full of glee, a screen grab.
It wasn't glee.
From Mr. Zuckerberg the other night, the Facebook platform might be changing.
This always happens just before we launch. Something changes, and there's potentially a very significant change coming to Facebook with lots of new things, including something called the Commerce Manager, which actually is very exciting. It's no one really knows anything much about it yet, even some of the kind of the higher level Facebook marketing groups, not to do with books that I'm in, where I get a lot of my ideas from. They're talking about it being a Shopify killer. So basically you'd be able, instead of advertising on Facebook and marketers sending people to Shopify to complete the transaction, it would all be done on Facebook. So obviously from an author's perspective, the interesting possibilities are that it's a rival to Amazon. So instead of advertising on Facebook, sending them to Amazon, it'd be advertising on Facebook, selling them on Facebook. So the issue then is how to get the digital book or audio book or paperback, whatever, but get the digital file onto an e-reading device, which is where something like BookFunnel would come in. So I don't know if Damon Courtney listens to the podcast, I suspect he does. That would be something he needs to get his antenna tuned into, because that could be something that takes BookFunnel from what I'd say is a reasonably indispensable service for authors to one that becomes not just indispensable but really lucrative. In that it's a platform that would enable people to sell stuff on Facebook. So yeah, lots coming in. And obviously when they change the platform, I can't have my name in a course that reflects the old version of the platform. So we have to immediately change all our plans. And I have to go back into this office again, shut the door, put some cold compress on my head and then re-record everything, which I can't tell you how much I enjoy doing that.
Yeah, I know you do.
But it has to be done.
It has to be done, and it is done, and we're fastidious about it, and we bring everything up to date. And there's a few things I think that sets our courses apart. That's one of them. I looked at, there's a guy doing quite a lot of advertising at the moment. I'm not going to mention it because it looks like, frankly, a slightly dodgy setup, and he keeps quoting his students who've gone from zero to hero, but he never names them. And I think every time we quote a student who's been successful with the course, we name them, and we've got pages and pages of video.
Well, we don't just name them; we go and film them.
Yes, exactly.
Very dodgy.
So okay. Anyway, we'll see. We'll keep in touch. I mean, the exciting thing is there's a development, another opportunity for authors potentially, and who knows what infrastructure is in Mr. Zuckerberg's mind for the future. Maybe they've got their own version of the Kindle. Maybe they've got their own print-on-demand service. All this stuff might come down the line eventually to make it a really tempting place or a must-have place for authors to be. That would be a threat to Amazon, particularly to the KU option. Fewer authors in the long run may do that if they think they can't take part in what the platform Facebook is offering. But it's a shifting sands. And that's part of the world we're in, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been looking at who could compete, who could step up and compete with Amazon for a little while now. Obviously, Apple could. They certainly have the deep pockets to do that. I mean, the richest company in the world, depending on when you look at it. Facebook definitely could. Google could. So maybe the challenge is going to come from Facebook. Who knows? But it's another interesting option as things develop.
Good. Okay, it's time for me to give our weekly shout out to our new Patreon supporters. And these are people who've gone to patreon.com and pledged a token amount of $1 up to $3 an episode for the podcast. By the way, you got 3 for the price of 1 last week. And that helps us pay for everything on the podcast and keep it self-sustaining. We're very grateful indeed for you being a part of that. But you do get, the major prize you get is you get enrollment into SPF University, and there's an opportunity to take part in our live instructions and teachings about once a month. and you get access immediately to the back catalogue of things like how to master Scrivener, how to use Amazon data, and how to keep your newsletters fresh with the real expert on that, Tammy Lebrec. So all sorts of things coming your way for being a Patreon supported. Simply go to patreon.com/self-publishing show. And who did that this week? Well, who did that was Josh Lanyon from California, United States of America, Brandon Clark from Denver, Colorado, Jacqueline Beard from Cheltenham in the UK, Emily McGregor Allen, Aisha Hilton, Rosalind Han, and Suzanne Baker. Thank you all very much indeed for joining us. We're thrilled to have you here. You get a shout out, of course, as part of that as well. Okay, so we've mentioned a couple of things. I'm going to ask you now about your trip to London this week, because they're basically not just recording. You went to an Audible session, but it's not just the normal narrator. It's like a whole production thing you're having done.
Yeah, I don't know how much I can say about it in terms of naming people who are involved, because I think it might be confidential. But I sold the rights to one of a book that's not actually coming out until January 2020, called The Vault, which was a really fun book to write. It's a real romp that I think is going to do quite well. And Audible were interested enough to take it on, and they are going to be producing what they call an Audible original, a multicast drama. So it's they've turned it into a script. So they employed a scriptwriter to take the novel, turn it into a script, and then a director's attached. The director then casts it, and so I turned up at Audible HQ in the Barbican in London, and sat down next to a couple of very well-known actors, and then 6 or 7 not as well-known actors, but still, if you look at their resumes, they've done lots of films, TV, video game work, all of that kind of stuff, and they've all been given parts. And then I went into the soundproof booth in Audible. They've got these fantastic studios, very, very highly specced out, and then heard these actors. One of whom is very well known, has been on TV recently, and then had to dash off to the Royal Court for to do a theatre play that evening. And these two actors kind of doing my characters, speaking words that I'd written, which was really crazy. And then the director turning to me and saying, "We're so pleased to have you here. We love this. It's fantastic, and it's really helpful to you can." She was asking me for advice to give notes to the actors as they're going through it, which was. My normal view is that that's your job. I write the novels, and I'm very happy for them to take it in whatever direction they want. But it was nice to be asked, and then did some promo for them, and it was a really cool day. One of the I've never seen that happen before, and I imagine if the TV show takes off, we'll have a day like that where I go and watch people acting out my characters. But to see these talented actors doing their thing with in my world was pretty nuts. So I really look forward to that.
Amazing. What an experience. Yeah, I read an article this week on how you should keep yourself out of the way as an author when your book gets turned into a drama production.
I would do. Yeah.
They're different things than experts, and we've talked about this before, and that experts are in film and television. It's not the same as writing the book. But anyway, yeah, how exciting for you. And I can't wait till we all go to Hollywood. To watch,
well, me and Lucy are. I'm not sure whether I'll take you along.
Who's going to take the pictures and the video for us?
You might have to do some work. Yeah. It could be part of my entourage.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
As if I haven't been arrested.
Yes, that's the other thing that happened to you this week. You're in the middle of a drugs raid.
Yeah, I got a phone call from the police yesterday saying, "Don't worry, Mr. Dawson. We were inside your office." I'm like, "Oh," which is where I am now, in case anyone is watching on YouTube. And so I had to dash from home into the office, and you got these 3 detectives from the Wiltshire Drug Squad who had just to lower my voice slightly because it's the flat above. They had arrested what you call a county lines drug dealer. So someone from London moved down to Salisbury, was put up in the flat above by my neighbour, I suppose. Allegedly, of course, and in exchange probably for free drugs, and then this was being used as some kind of drugs den, which is goes to show I don't keep my eyes open because I hadn't seen a thing. But the weird thing was, after I kind of got chatting to the policeman, they'd noticed that I was a writer from the fact that I've got lots of books kind of behind me and all that kind of stuff. And we got chatting, and weirdly enough, the second book in my new Atticus Priest detective series that I'm working on in the next book after I finish the Milton I'm working on now is going to involve county lines drug stealing. That was something I wanted to write about. So we had a really long chat, and the upshot is they want to be involved, and they are speaking to their gaffer, so their detective inspector who is in charge of the three of them. And he's going to give me a call, and hopefully I'll be able to go over and, in the same way that Peter James is very heavily involved with Brighton Constabulary, it would be really cool to have connections within the Salisbury and the wider Wiltshire Constabulary. So, even it's funny that just as if there's any advice from that, it is first of all to get better locks on your doors. So I've done that now, and secondly is just to keep your eyes open, and if you're presented with an opportunity like that, don't be afraid to talk to, in this case, the police, get to know them a bit, and and ask, what's the worst thing they could do apart from, I suppose they could arrest you, but the worst thing they can do is say no, and maybe they say yes.
Yeah, that's great. Interesting. And what are you going to do that your dealer's been taken out the market?
Yes, exactly.
It was so convenient, wasn't he, upstairs? But,
we had like one of those, what are they called?
An account.
No, the old kind of sliding.
The lazy waiter.
Exactly. Press a button and it comes down. There is a word for that, and it's going to annoy me now that I can't think of it. But yes, So I'll have to.
Dumbwaiter.
I think yes, a dumbwaiter. That's it. Yeah, a dumbwaiter. So you have to.
With your pile of Coke.
Yeah, exactly. I am basically Al Pacino.
We are joking. Don't do drugs, kids. Okay. Right, on that message. Okay, so Ryan Schow. Now, we bumped into Ryan Schow. We drove up on a Friday night, which was a mistake, by the way, from San Francisco to Northern California up towards, I guess, Tahoe, in all the Tahoe traffic. But we got there. We had a fantastic afternoon and evening with Ryan. And the reason we went to see him, because he does represent the dream that I have and that lots of you have, which is this author who loves his writing, is in a full-time job, but has just clicked. And Mark, you get a mention. You get several honourable mentions in this because he took the Ads for Authors course, and that really turned it round for him. But he's a very positive guy. I think he writes from memory. Certainly dystopian. I think it's clean and dystopian that he writes, but a brilliant chat to listen to. And I'll just tell you before we start. So I got a message, coincidentally, I don't think Ryan knew that we were recording this today, but late last night after I'd gone to bed, because he's 8 hours behind us, a message dropped from Ryan saying, here's a little screen grab I want to show you. He said, this is my first full year after I left my job, and it's his book report screen grab. And I'm not going to give the figure away, but I'm going to tell you that there's 6 figures in that. Now, I don't know what he was earning before.
6 figures to the left of the decimal point.
Yeah, 6 figures to the left. Yeah, 8 figures, including the cents after. I'll tell you, it's 20 cents. I'll give that much away.
All right.
It's up to Ryan how much detail he wants to give out. Not everyone gives out exact figures, but healthy 6 figures, and what a fantastic success story that is. So that's where he is today. But we spoke to him last autumn, just after he'd earned enough and realised it was happening for him to quit his job, which is fantastic. So let's hear from Ryan.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Ryan Schow is how to say your name.
Yes, that's correct.
Because I need to know these things now that we're talking. And I'm introducing you. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, sir. Very nice to meet you.
If people are watching on YouTube, we are in Ryan's home, sort of in Ryan's home. We're in your apartment complex, and this is like the community space.
Yes.
Because it's a very large kitchen to have if it's your home. We should just explain that.
This is my house. Don't tell anybody otherwise.
And there's a beautiful swimming pool over to the left, and and we're in Northern California, which, apart from the most horrendous traffic I've ever experienced in my life, is a beautiful place to be.
Yeah, it's worth the drive.
Earthquake free today as well, which is
yes, hopefully.
Good. Okay, that sets the scene for where we are now. The reason we've come all this way to see you is because you have made that big step from 9 to 5 existence. Literally a car salesman, not just the metaphorical car salesman. You sold cars, and now you are a writer from home, and we want to hear all about that and make some notes so that other people listening, including me, can follow in your path. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the background to your writing up until the point where you where things took off for you?
Well, it started out It started out with me working horrendous hours in the car business when I was very young, and my wife said, you have to do something different so that I can see you once in a while. And so I had read a Nicholas Sparks novel, and ironically, I had his father as a professor over at Sac State. And when that happened, he started telling me about the success his son had, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. I actually like writing. So I started writing at that point in time, and it took me probably maybe 16 years to figure out that agents weren't answering my letters if I didn't know anybody. And so very frustrated.
You were writing, what were you writing then?
I'd written a couple things. I started out writing kind of Stephen King type stuff. Okay. And then I actually took a stab at writing contemporary romance because that had been doing well. But then, like I said, I couldn't really get any kind of traction with any agents, and it was very frustrating. I gave up a couple of times, which is not an uncommon story. But then I started seeing, well, it's funny because I actually Googled successful indie authors, and that's when I saw the article about Mark. And it said that the article was something to the extent of why Amazon likes to hand Mark Dawson $400,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, okay, this is cool. I'm gonna start looking at this guy. And it's funny because that's kind of how I stumbled upon Mark Dawson. And in the process, I had been writing my indie novels, and I was trying to figure out how can I get them published. And so I'd written about 6 of them in a series, and I hadn't released it yet because I just didn't know how. I had no kind of background knowledge on which direction to go. Unfortunately, you didn't have the SPF 101 course out yet.
So that's tough situation to have. I mean, I know from personal experience that writing a novel is really hard. Mm-hmm. So having 6 novels sort of written and edited, and
yes, and I did it while working full time. So I was more than full time.
So you obviously love writing.
Yeah, I can't stop. You know, every time I get frustrated and think, oh, I'm going to do something else, I think I don't really want to do anything else, and then I go, man, but I got to get in and start writing again. And it's something that's like almost like alien, man. It screams at you. You got to get in there and you've got to write. I have to write. Wow. And so for me, it wasn't a question. I was going to succeed. And I tell my wife 100 times, I'm either going to be successful or I'm going to die trying to be successful.
And what's interesting to me is that your choice of genre at the beginning wasn't that there was one particular one you really wanted to write. You were looking for something to be commercially successful from the beginning.
Well, yeah, and I thought that I had one that was commercially successful, and I think that was one of the challenges that I didn't quite have answered, and so it was a bit of a struggle for me. I didn't know where it was going to be placed, how it was going to be placed. I didn't know enough about Amazon. I didn't know any of the back-end stuff until I really started kind of researching a lot of that. And I had written all these books that I still, even to this day, I'm using the new strategies or the strategies that I found with Ads for Authors, and I'm thinking, how do I get this into a market where there's no clear market for it? But everything that I learned along the way brought me to my Last War series. The Last War series is post-apocalyptic fiction, and very much like Adam Croft, I started out going, okay, let me find a good area. I know I can write anything I want.
So Adam famously wrote the advert.
Thank you, Adam.
The tagline and the advert, and then wrote the book. I mean, he sort of had the idea in the book, I think, on the back burner. So you did a similar thing. You thought, what's going to work well marketing-wise? Yes.
Well, I realized my path to making it successful was not there in this other book. And so I thought, okay, well, I've got to figure out if I've got a marketing direction here. I've got to figure out from Facebook if I can do this. I've got to figure out where I'm going to place it on Amazon. And so I really kind of got into the business mode of it. And as I found more information, it became really exciting because I think I'm onto something here. And then I wrote the Last War series. It was just post-apocalyptic fiction. It's done phenomenal since then.
Okay, so post-apocalyptic, it felt like the traffic out of between San Francisco and here today.
Just need a few drones flying over shooting at you.
We had that. We had helicopters hovering, flashing lights at us, weren't they? John, we were worried at one point.
Welcome to California.
It prompted a discussion how technology is going to take over in the end, and I think that's a theme to your books. Yes. But from your point of view, you thought this is going to work well, but did you read post-apocalyptic fiction?
I didn't know it was going to work well. I was at this point in time, I'm still hanging out. But I had followed Chris Fox's guideline, right to market, and a lot of people have, and Chris is amazing. And I did that after actually finding him on your podcast. And then my friend Abby Kenor, she said, you gotta listen to this. And there's another book, Why Your Facebook Ads Suck. She says, well, get these. And I was like, okay. So as I started to put all that together, I thought, okay, let me find my market first. I wrote to the market. And I grabbed the 3 or 4 or 5 best-selling books in the genre and began to read them and thought, man, I can do this. And fortunately, I wasn't so entrenched in the genre that I did what a lot of the other guys have done, bringing AI into the mix, where AI now wages war against mankind in the city of San Francisco, which traffic,
Yes, I experienced it.
It probably feels halfway like that now. I thought, okay, this is a good one. This will work. And so what I did is I read through all the worst interviews, all the worst reviews, and I thought, what is missing through all of these stories? And I found they're missing character development. There's not enough action in there. Swearing. I have a lot of older readers, 50s,
too
60s,
much
70s.
Or too little?
Too much. I wish it was too little, but no, it was too much. So I went in and I wrote the series as a clean series, and as a result of it, I was able to have people refer the books to their church. There's a big post-apocalyptic fiction following through churches.
Big Christian post-apocalyptic.
Yes.
Well, I guess it sort of ties into the end, which is talked about. And the first half of the Bible is very post-apocalyptic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But we digress. Still violence, though. You're allowed violence. You must have violence in post-apocalyptic.
But I did, but it wasn't, like, I tend to kind of go overboard a little bit. So there was no, like, violence porn where someone just gets in and says, okay, I'm going to dig into every detail. I almost gave it like a 100-foot view, so that you have the impression that, man, this is happening, and it's still very intense, but it's not gratuitous. So I wrote it almost in a PG-13 vein. I didn't want to turn any readers off. I didn't want to close down any markets that I had, and that's worked very well.
And did you enjoy writing this?
Yes.
I mean, you're very smiley about your writing. So, but the reason I ask is because you've made so many commercial decisions about how the book's going to be, that I was sitting there wondering, listening to this, thinking, in the end, was it a bit of a chore writing to that framework?
No, I love writing. I can't go a day without writing. I'm one of those people. I'm a word nerd. So I get in and I write, and it's strange because everything else disappears. And I'm in the story, and I love the story. I have full control of the story. I know how I want my characters to be. I know what I want my audience to feel. And as I go back, and I've developed this good following through email and through Facebook groups, and seeing the reviews, what I set out to do was done, and I was very happy with that. And so that being said, I see all these authors, they're just building up and up and up. Abby did amazing. My friend Shane Silver's doing amazing. And so I look at these people and I go, man, they're inspiring. And that's this is all part of being part of the SPF community.
Yes, which is great. And we're all happy with each other's success, which is a very key part of all this.
It's a huge part, because other areas, they don't seem to care about that, or they get little...
I guess in the car salesman area, it probably wasn't quite the same.
No. Fortunately, I got above that into management, but then again, management came that way too, and it's very, very competitive. Yeah. But to see the support that takes place through the indie author community is amazing. I still sit back in awe.
Yeah, that is lovely. Okay, well, so you've moved. You've given a little spoiler there that it all worked, but let's which
maybe
people may have guessed anyway. Listening to this, but so let me take you to that point where you put all this stuff in place. You'd written how many post-apocalyptic books when you really started marketing them?
I started marketing them on the first one. In fact, I followed Chris Fox's program. I looked in. I saw Izzy Shows did some. She's amazing. She did this whole breakdown on K-boards of how she did it, where she spent the money, and I realized, okay, this is the direction I got to go. I've very much reverse engineered my success and then relied on the advertising end of it through Mark's course. So I was able to put everything together, which is how I planned to do this anyway, hoping, I was banking on it going, because this is my love and this is my passion. I needed it to work. And when I put this out, it did really well. It blew me away. And so I had just completed the 7th and final book in the series.
Even book one, you were selling book one, or were you giving it away? Or
no, I was selling it.
You were selling it?
Yeah, so I went in and I initially did 99 cents, and I did pre-order. I just did too short of a time. I wish I would have had a little bit more time on Facebook ads with it, but I did the pre-order probably 5 days before, and then I backed it up with some advertising through like Bargain Booksy and stuff like that. But Facebook primarily is what I use to bring everything in, and then I kept it for about 7 days, and I had everything stacked. So I had my advertising areas stacked, and so having those stacked, it really kind of launched me up in there. And I ended up doing well. And then I took it after, I believe, 10 days to $2.99, and it pretty much held. I think I made something like, I mean, it's not a huge success to everybody, but it was to me. But I ended up making, I think, like $6,000 in the first 3-4 weeks.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
I think I'd be thrilled with that.
Certainly enough to be able to leave a job on, or start dreaming of it.
Yeah, but it's the beginning of it. Yeah, absolutely. Sure. And you must have spent a bit on advertising, so you invested in the book.
Yes, but I didn't have to spend as much as I thought. And honestly, I didn't know. I thought I spent a lot more than I did on AMS ads. And I started looking in this, and I was reviewing the course with Mark, and then I went into how he breaks everything down, calculating how much he spends each day, and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not spending as much as I thought. I'd set my limits high, thinking it's like Facebook, that they're going to spend all my money, and they didn't. And still today, my challenge is to get them to spend a little bit more. And then Facebook, of course, spends all my money.
Yes, Facebook.
But yes, I do very good with them.
Facebook will take your money, regardless of the success of the ad or not. But AMS, even when it's a successful ad, as people tell us all the time, they struggle to get it to take all the money.
Yes.
Well, fantastic, and congratulations.
Thank you.
And what a moment for you as well, because this is not something you took up 18 months ago. As you say, from a young age, this has been a dream.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny. I started writing. I wrote a story in 5th grade, and in 5th grade it was a Halloween story. Ironically, my first actual real story published was a Halloween story too. But we were talking about serial killers early before the interview, and so I had a slasher in there, and I was so proud of it. Yeah. And my teacher read it, and everybody was horrified, looking at me like, "Oh my God, who's this kid?" But I wrote this horror story in 5th grade, and that was my first story. And after that, I started reading. I read a lot of Stephen King and Dean Koontz. I like that. I like to be scared. So those guys have helped me really develop. I mean, on a sidetrack, those guys helped me develop the greatest villains. But that being said, I really started kind of going after it when I was maybe 19, 20 years old. And then I had my first book ready to be published probably, oh my gosh, maybe 2 years later, 3 years later. And then I worked on that for about 10 years.
And how old are you now? Do you mind me asking?
22.
Okay.
Well, 46. Real 46.
Are you 46?
Yes.
But you do look younger. Doesn't it look younger?
I'm legit 46.
Yeah, I'm not just saying.
Thank you. So 22.
Yeah. Well, that's how fantastic that you're on the way now. So the first book took off. You're writing quickly, I think.
I learned how to write quickly because I did ghostwriting for people, and so that was a way to kind of make money without being published. And so I did ghostwriting, and that's how I learned to write on a deadline. And I realized probably, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago, that I could write a 350-page book in a month if I just do what I'm supposed to do while having a full-time job. So I got after it. At that point in time, and I realized I can do this. And that's what I was talking to you about. Is I wrote as a pantser for a while, but then I started organizing everything out, because when I was doing the ghostwriting, I charged by the hour for outlines. So I put together a 35-page treatment with character, the whole character development, who they are, backstory, everything, so that I can present it to the person that I was working for and say, hey, this is kind of the direction that we're going, make sure everything's good, and then I'll get in and crank it out. And I would get in and I would do it in about 30 days. So I thought, man, if I can write like this.
I find the ghostwriting industry fascinating. And let's talk about that a little bit, because it's... who are your customers when you're a ghostwriter?
I had, one man was a Nigerian man who'd survived the Civil War, the Nigerian Biafran Civil War, and he was in the middle of it. His village was was hit. It was strafed by airplanes at that point in time, and he ended up being a young soldier, 12, 13 years old, forced to be a soldier in that war. So that was probably one of the most interesting things. I love history, which is why I can't wait for your book to come out. But I loved that history because I didn't know anything about it. So I spent a lot of time sitting down and talking with him about it.
Was that a fictional book, or did you want the biography?
It was nonfiction.
Effectively the autobiography. Okay.
Yeah, so you really need to kind of be good on the details. And then another one was a book that I wrote for a gentleman who's needed to have some sort of backstory so that he could come in and go into a friend in Hollywood and have some sort of publishing credentials. So he did that, and then I ended up writing a screenplay for him.
So that was a shortcut for him to have.
It was a shortcut. Well, you pay me money, so I'm okay.
Yeah. So the ghost, as I suspect, the ghostwriting industry on the autobiography, I completely understand it. And I think when you pick up a celebrity's autobiography, we understand that there's. In fact, it very often says with somebody.
Exactly.
But writing somebody's fiction for them does sound a bit murky to me. And I've had people.
It was my fiction, is what I had to do that. Yeah.
Because of my position, I've had people approaching me. By the way. Oh yeah. Saying I can write your book for you. Yeah. And there has been dark moments when I've lied there late in the thinking.
Maybe I should.
Yeah, maybe I should, but I have not, obviously. But yeah, so it's a little bit murky, but it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because he gave me the story, and I'm like, well, I don't think that that's going to be commercially viable. What about like this? And so he said, why don't we do this? Why don't you write the story for me? Let me just kind of look at what you have in mind and let's go. So it really was 100% my story. I never got anything but great feedback from him, and I was very happy to do that. So. And
ghostwriters typically work for a single fee, or do you get a cut of sales? Or?
What you do is, well, obviously you sign a non-disclosure agreement, and then you could do a cut of sales. Some people do, but I did by the hour. So I basically charged $50 an hour and wrote.
Yeah, and at the other end of the scale, I'm not going to mention any names for legal reasons, but there are some very famous authors now who it's well understood don't write all their own books anymore. Yes. And so that's effectively a ghostwriting process.
They have a lot of books coming out.
They have a lot of books coming out very quickly, and they're a brand in their own right. And I've been with somebody who does some of that writing for one of the gentlemen, and I think they are very involved in the book. But
I think everything originally comes out, and they say, okay, let me put my little shine on there, and then that's what makes it theirs to some degree. And you can do that. I mean, you can put together the basis for a book really well, and then go in. So when I build my books in layers. I'll go through and I'll write. With errors and everything in there to crank out sometimes. I mean, I try to do about 5,000 words a day. There's days I'll hit 10,000, days I do 1,000, but I try and get the story out there. And then I go back in there and I correct everything and make sure that, the story itself doesn't have any flaws in terms of the content, nothing overlapping. And then I'll walk in at that point in time and I'll start to put in a little bit of texture.
So this is your books you're talking about now? Yeah. Okay. So I'm interested in this process. And so you said you have moved from pantsing to plotting, and that's helped the speed of production of your books?
It makes a huge difference for me because I don't have to sit there and think what's going on. Like when I finish out my day, I'll do a full write, and then I'll go do a read through, and I'll edit again. And at the end of that period, I'll put in probably 2 or 3 paragraphs for the next 2 or 3 scenes that I'm going to write, so I have an idea of where we're going. So then I'm marinating overnight, what am I going to include in the next day? And of course, there's always, what would everybody else write? Then how can I make it a little bit bigger? How can I stand out? Where can I add humor in there? And these are all the things I think that I've done well.
And so when you come to write the next day, you're reading through your notes and you're ready to go,
Yeah, my wife has to tell me to get out of the chair. Or my wrists start to cramp up and I go, okay, I must be at 10,000 words.
And when you do your plotting, that's how you plot? You sort of start and then plot ahead during the write, or do you do the whole?
Yes.
You don't do the whole book in
advance? I do the whole book up front.
You do?
Yeah,
okay.
So what I do is I break it down and I take the first 6 points. So I'll do 6 major plot points in there. And I'll say, okay, this is kind of the direction I want the book to go. And I'll work it up like this. So I say, okay, this is what I'm working up to. This is where there's a little bit of a lull after, or a little bit of a tiny drop after a big scene. And then here's the big climactic finish. And then I always kind of leave a little bit of a cliffhanger in there, not with the main character, but with something that can bring people through but not upset people. And so I do these 6 things, and then I go in and I write in some of the sub-characters. a little bit of the action, what kind of a feel that I want, and I will literally take that outline and I'll start writing in there, and I'll just push everything down, and so everything is really already in there for me as I go. Now I'm just kind of filling it in, because stories sometimes they take a bit of a turn, but as long as they stay within that framework, it's very easy for me to sit down and write. I never get writer's block. I always have more stuff that I want to write that my hands won't let me, or my back won't let me. So as I get in and write it becomes very easy. I wouldn't do it any other way. And some people are great with pantsers, everyone to each their own, but for me, man, it's improved my speed tremendously.
And what do you write in?
Word, Microsoft Word. Okay. So yeah, there's some great other programs out there, but man, I'm a creature of habit. So. And
do you stand up, sit down? You said you're back.
I need to start standing up. Yeah, but I sit
desk.
down. Yeah, I sit down. I need to start standing up. I saw an ad for one of those things, the station lifts, and I'm thinking, oh man, that's...
You definitely need to get that.
I need that. I need one of those. I've had to take a day off or two and go, okay, I got to recoup a little bit.
We could do what Roald Dahl did, and Mark found this fantastic old film of Roald Dahl explaining his writing day, and he had a cabin at the bottom of his garden, and he was in a reclined seat with a blanket over his telephone on the side. And because
something to work toward.
He had a pencil and a notepad, of course, in
really?
those days.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So that's your next thing: a sit-stand desk or a shed in the garden. But.
Someone was telling me about a treadmill desk. I think that might be the way to go.
Yeah. Like in Wolf of Wall Street, you had one.
Well, yeah. One of the cautions about being a full-time writer is you got to move.
Yeah, you got to move, and sitting down is. I know it's a bit of a cliche. Everything's the new cancer, but it is absolutely no question that sitting down for long periods is not good for you.
Yeah.
And we will do a podcast episode on more the health aspects of being a writer. We did a little bit with Joe Penn once, but it's an important subject.
When you get in and you start doing it full time, or you get in and you start doing it, yeah, it really is. I was reading one famous author. I'm trying to remember what her name is, but she wrote 10 things that are important for authors to know, and one of them was take care of your back. And I thought, man, it's not just me. And then Michael Andrew Lake talks about his wrists, and there are some stuff that you've got to do, but. Yeah, man, you're doing what you love. You figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. You'll find a way. Okay, so another couple of questions about the marketing and advertising side. Yes. It's interesting that you talked about the clean aspect of them, which I have to say, when you think of post-apocalyptic dystopian thrillers, I don't necessarily imagine that there's a clean subgenre of that, but I guess there is.
Me neither, but I made it. There are some, because there are religious writers in there that pastors and stuff that write that. So there are a couple in there that will do that, but I can't imagine doing anything clean. And so for me, that was a challenge for myself, which was, okay, if my grandma was going to read it, what would she say? Yeah. And if I have people that are reading it that look at their church group, I thought, okay, well, are they going to feel comfortable recommending it or not? And so it was a big challenge for me.
And how do you signal that in your advertising? How do people know?
I let them know it's a clean series, and a lot of people appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I put this as a clean series. I put it at the bottom of my blurb too. This is a clean series, and that brings a lot of people in. That for whatever reason, there was an issue with swearing with some of the reviews of other writers, for other writers, was that they were swearing, but there was a lot of gratuitous sex too, which I would not have imagined would gone together with post-apocalyptic fiction, but.
There's nothing else to do in the post-apocalyptic.
Some people live out their fantasies on the page.
Either you're running from out of control AIs, or
exactly. So we'll leave that for the erotica base.
Park that for a bit. That's goes back to conversations we've had on the podcast this year about making it clear in our last book lab, we talked about this, making it clear in your blurb what it is, and conversely, if there's sex in your book. And that's a part of the book, you need to say that as well on the cover or in the blurb.
Yeah.
So there's no confounding expectations.
If you handle it well, because I did put some in there, if you handle it from a little bit of a distance, and again, you leave a certain amount to the imagination. I don't say there's any kind of sex interaction in my books. There is a little bit here and there, but I've never had to warn anybody, and people have commented that the treatment of that was actually done really well and tastefully. So,
and from a commercial point of view, saying this is a clean post-apocalyptic series is better than, because there's going to be some people who are going to want to read this for the kind of edginess.
Well, and Yeah, I think that my next series is going to be with a little bit more edge, but I started out actually writing from a woman's perspective because most of the readers are women anyway, 80% I think. And so I took it from a female perspective, and that didn't originally go off so well with male readers of the series, but they took on, they jumped into it and they took it on. They said, okay, I'll read through it. And in the second book and the third book and the fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh, I had some very strong male characters that could take the front lead. And I actually found a way that I got a lot of male readers now in that as well. I was able to kind of diversify and say, okay, or segment it rather in Facebook ads and go, okay, men and women in these ages, and I would go in and find out who my demographic was, and to my surprise, my demographic was 55-year-old women and above. And I was like, whoa, I did not think I was writing for this. But they are the best fans, let me tell you.
I bet they love you. I bet they are.
Yeah.
A young boy like you. Young,
22.
He's such a nice boy.
22 years old. Exactly. That day.
How important is the mailing list to you?
The mailing list is very important for me because what it does is it starts to build my base that's mine. In other words, if something funky happens with Amazon, I know that I can bring that base to other platforms. But by and large, that group has helped me immensely. I've gotten the pre-readers. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Oh yeah, the advanced team.
Thank you. Yeah, advanced reader group.
Team, yeah.
So I got the advanced reader group in place there. So I get that helps me out with reviews so that I can walk in and know, okay, I'm getting 10, 15, 20 reviews that they're pulling on right away. And of course you see how big Mark's group is, and I've learned a lot from watching some other authors. Shane Silvers is amazing for that. That's probably one of the best guys I've seen for building up an audience of people. There are some devoted fans, my God. But I've done that, and then I've also built up my Facebook group. So I built my Facebook group up, and everything this time around with the last war series, I did organic, and I built 1,000 really, really good people, and I've got a really good group of people on my Facebook, the fan page as well. And man, they help my launches. My launches do really, really well as a result of it, and they're going to get better and better. I'm excited to see what my second series for post-apocalyptic fiction is going to bring, because everything that I've learned from how to launch a book properly, I've got on steroids now. Yeah. So now this second run, and then I'm going to release 2 books that are pretty close together, about 18 days apart. And I think I've watched other authors like Lindsay Hall do that, and it looks like it does really, really well for them. People don't want to wait. They want to see your book and they want the next one right away.
Do you have lots of personal contacts with your group? So you're in the group all the time?
Yeah, I love them. Yeah. They help me out immensely. I got a guy who says, I can help you with anything you want to know about 1949 cars. And this guy says, I'm great at guns. And this old lady says, I'm 72 years old and I'm in a wheelchair, but I can shoot a gun and I can tell you everything you need to do to survive the apocalypse. And I go, perfect, let's go. So yeah, I have a lot of interaction with them. I love them. They're great. They're very loyal. It's probably one of the best things about doing this.
Okay, well, that's superb, Brian. We should probably say a little bit about Mark's ads for authors, because I've steered away from asking directly about it because it sounds like we're plugging the course. But I know you're very excited. Yes. I know you want to say thank you to Mark basically for.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, James. Yeah, you guys have helped me have a career. So it's one thing to be able to write a great book. You have to be able to write a great book. You got to be able to edit it, get good covers. But to go in and to have the education that you need you can't put a price on that. So thank you.
We can put a price on it. 700.
You did.
That's going too far. Ryan, thank you so much indeed for hosting us up here in Northern California.
I'm so glad you came here. Thank you.
In beautiful and peaceful Northern California. And we were all just going to watch your success go on and on and on.
Yeah, well, I got my fingers crossed. I got good people behind me, great education. Just on the ads for Authors Course too, Mark, thank you very, very much for continuing to update without charging us. You don't know how important that is.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
So Ryan Schow, spelt S-C-H-O-W. Wouldn't necessarily guess that's pronounced Scowl, would you?
I would.
Would you?
I would, yeah. How would you pronounce it? Shao?
Yeah, what a show. Lovely guy. I hope you get to meet him at some point if he's at one of the conferences. And I really enjoyed spending time with him in this little gated community like everyone seems to live in America. Good. Is that it for this week? We should mention that, having heard Ryan's success story, we should say that the Ads for Authors course is available at the moment. You can go to selfpublishingformula.com/ads for authors. At the time we're recording this, it'll probably close up in another couple of weeks, we think. So towards the end of June.
So as this comes out, it'll be about a week to go.
Yeah, 25th, 26th of June, something like that. I think maybe 2 weeks to go when this comes out.
Yes, well, anyway, there's a limited, there's certainly a expiration date.
There's an expiration date, not for the material, but just for the period of time that we open it, and we'll open it again in the winter. I think that's it, Mark. Try to stay clear of the Wiltshire Drug Squad.
Yes, as I just said to you before we started recording, apart from what happened yesterday, they've actually just shut the high street, which is in that direction. There's police tape across that, and cars with flashing blue lights blocking the way. So I have absolutely no idea what's going on, but I am just going for my lunch. So if you don't hear from me this afternoon, it's because I've been arrested. They finally found me.
Yeah, the net is closing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
As long as they give you a laptop in prison, I'm happy, because basically you'll be really focused on work.
You would, yes, that's right. Well, you'd be focused on lots of other things, but yes, work would be. I'd be focused on avoiding things, but yes, that would be one thing I would be focused on.
Just don't drop the soap. Good.
Oh dear.
Thank you very much indeed for listening for this week. We'll be back next week. I can give you a little preview. Next week we are going to Barcelona. So it's another, if you're watching on YouTube, you would have noticed that our interview today was filmed properly with cameras in situ. Next week is the same. Next week's filmed on a yacht or boat or cruiser. I don't know what sort of yacht it is, in a harbour in Barcelona. So it looks amazing, and a really good chat with somebody who is using advertising, paid ads, to financially make money with non-fiction. So we get asked this question all the time. Does the sort of thing that you're doing, Mark, you're teaching with Amazon ads and Facebook ads, does that work for people with non-fiction, or do you have to be writing romance and thrillers? Well, here's a living, breathing example of somebody who's taken your teaching and turned it into a life-changing amount of money selling his non-fiction books. That's Mark Recklow, and that is next week. And so until then, I'm going to say it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishingshow. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with The Self-Publishing Show.